Unless I'm thrown off here, there have been, since the outset of training camp, 14 players vying for 5 spots, bottom 6 forwards, around Lars Eller, the one lockdown certainty. And out of that group, out of those 14, the guy who's been the best of them, and I mean the best by a mile, was someone that a lot of us weren't even thinking about. Good morning to you. Good Friday morning. I'm Dejan Kovacevic of DK Pittsburgh Sports. This is Daily Shot of Penguins. It comes your way bright and early every weekday if you're into football and or baseball. I also offer daily shots of Steelers and Pirates in the same place that you found this. Penguins 3, Blue Jackets 1 last night in Columbus. There'll be one more preseason game tonight at PPG Paints Arena against that same opponent. Goals came from Jesse Puljujarvi, Valtteri Puustinen, and then an empty netter from Kevin Hayes. 34 saves and 35 shots by Tristan Jarry. And yet again, the best player on the rink, this has become a common theme, was Puljujarvi, and not just because of terrific wrist serve, a goal, assist on the empty netter. It's just the same stuff we've been talking about since quite literally the first drills of camp up in Cranberry. I mentioned it to you immediately that Puljujarvi stood out, and I meant it in exactly that way. Big dude, really mobile on his skates, winning physical battles along the boards, and then from there, using all of that natural skill that had made him a number 4 overall pick in the draft all those years ago to make a quality, in some cases a high quality, next play. These are Mike Sullivan-like traits all over the place. So do not be surprised by Sullivan's assessment after the game last night when asked by Taylor Haas of DK Pittsburgh Sports to discuss really his skating.
Night and day. I think it's night and day. I think he's so much stronger. I think his skating is much better. And as I said to you guys, on a couple of occasions with respect to Jesse, that was a very difficult rehab process that he went through last year, and that stuff takes time. And he worked extremely hard to get to the point where he could even play last year. So to have the full summer to continue to get stronger, I think his skating is night and day, and I think his confidence is growing because of it. So for me, he's been one of the guys in this training camp. If you would ask me to single out, a few guys, he would be one that I think has had an extremely good training camp. He certainly put himself in the conversation for this Pittsburgh Penguins roster.
Let's bear in mind that when Kyle Dubas took the smart risk, and it was going to be a smart risk even if it fell on its face, to bring Puljujarvi in on the tryout, even though he'd had the double hip resurfacing that almost nobody's been able to come back from in the NHL. Now you have Puljujarvi, now you have Patrick Kane, and hopefully they're the ones that'll be leading the parade of players to come back from that as shining examples. So the only issue, well, I shouldn't say the only one, one of the two issues about how Puljujarvi would fare in his return, and the main one, the giant one, was his health. Now, he has said himself that coming into this camp, he feels no differently than he did in his younger days. He's not in pain. He's not feeling limited in any way. He's just back to playing hockey again. More important, he's showing that, Anybody can say it, and he had some positive things to say last year when he first arrived, but this is different. He's showing it. The other issue was that, when he was in Edmonton, there were questions, concerns, criticisms about a consistent effort, about being a factor overall, 200 by 85. That's something that I've spoken with him about, and that's something that he assured me in the most passionate tones not only would never be an issue for him again, but could never be an issue for him again because he was robbed of hockey. It was taken away from him. He spent months basically being told about these long odds, braced for those long odds. And now that he's bucked them to this point, to the point where he's back in the NHL and creating a similar impact to what had been expected of him all along, yeah, I'm buying it. I'm buying what he's selling. Now, how does he fit into the lineup? And by the way, no one's going to say he's made the team yet. The roster hasn't been announced, and there's really no benefit to doing so in one direction or the other until you see how everybody emerges from all of these games, because injuries happen and blah, blah, blah. But he's made the team. He will be in the lineup next Wednesday against the Rangers. Now, who will be there with him and where will he be? I'm going to give a quick shot at line combinations here, at least as I see them right now. This episode is brought to you by Bet Online, your number one source for all your summer sports needs this season, from Major League Baseball, golf, NHL, NBA playoffs. Get the latest odds and lines, including all team matchups, player props, odds on just about everything that's out there. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to get in on the action. Bet Online, where the game starts. The first line, I know they've been messing around with Anthony Beauvillier up there throughout camp and throughout the preseason. No, that's got to be Drew O'Connor next to Sidney Crosby and Brian Rust. I'm positive it'll be Michael Bunting next to Evgeny Malkin and Ricard Raquel. And where it starts to get interesting is that third line. I see Eller, Puljujarvi, and I guess that's where you would put Beauvillier, because he's more of an offensive type. You give Eller and Puljujarvi somebody else with some speed and skill and keep the third line more focused toward offense. And then the fourth line, listen, this isn't a wish. This is an expectation, meaning that Noel Acciari is going to be on it. They need him for penalty killing, even though you're not going to get a whole lot more out of him at 5-on-5. Kevin Hayes would then be the center, and Blake Lizotte, who's currently out with a concussion, so you don't know when he's going to be back, but he would be the guy that would line up on the left, I think, and that leaves some people out that you're a little bit uncomfortable leaving out. Valtteri Puustinen, who had a goal last night. Cody Glass, who's skated well and who's shown natural talent of his own, doesn't necessarily get a whole lot done with it. I can see some of what teams liked in him, while also recognizing why he hasn't had big point totals. And from there, you're getting mostly into younger guys, Vasily Ponomarev, Ville Koivunen, who, by the way, had a great assist last night, Sam Poulin, Rutger McGroarty, definitely not to be left out. I've been saying for a long time now he's not making the team out of training camp. Might have had his strongest showing last night, and I'm sure I'm leaving out a whole bunch of Emil Bemstroms. But that's looking like the lineup. And from there, you can see how very important Puljujarvi is, because he, all by himself, really stretches that depth chart just a little bit more. If you can get that third line to be productive, my goodness, what a big difference that would make for this hockey team. When we come back, J1Q. Today's J1Q comes from Bob, who says, the dilemma. The NHL salary cap. Using the guys with a pecking order to showcase a trade and then losing the promising guy in a trade because there was no room on the roster. What do you do? Too bad there's no room to really excel or to fail in the NHL for some of these younger guys who've done well in this camp. I'm glad I'm not the one to make the decisions, just the one to complain when it goes wrong. Way to show yourself there, Bob. As I referenced on yesterday's show, I do believe that Harrison Brunick, one of the young guys for sure that you're referring to, has a chance to do that 9-game thing here. I really believe that, meaning that he can stay in the NHL for a maximum 9 games before he has to be returned to his junior team, or he's got to stay here all season. But the reason I say that, in addition to how superlative he's been, is that Erik Karlsson isn't healthy yet. Karlsson is back on the ice, and yesterday he was back on the ice with his teammates for the first time in this camp. Now, Mike Sullivan has said that he feels that Karlsson is the type of player who can be ready in short order, who can go out there and compete at a high level without necessarily needing a week or two of whatever. And bear in mind, nobody has any idea what's wrong with him. But there's a part of me that's not that I'm not buying it as in Sullivan's lying or something. He'd have no reason to do that. But it's just not easy to envision Karlsson not having had a full, all the way contact type practice and then facing the Rangers and the Red Wings on back-to-back nights, because that's how the Penguins start the season. These are two of the fastest teams in the league. And unless you want to see somebody, even of Karlsson's skill, get spun like a top out there with Dylan Larkin and Chris Kreider and whoever just whizzing around, it just doesn't seem like a great idea. Whereas at least the kid has been in the groove now for a while. So again, I think he has a chance. The rest of them, I don't know that they ever did, including McGroarty, because as soon as I saw McGroarty at the beginning of camp, and I'm saying this with nothing but admiration for the camp that he's had, I could see very easily, actually, that he's got a ways to go with his overall game. And this isn't the place to do that. That wouldn't be fair to him. It certainly wouldn't be fair to the Penguins. He's yet to play a single game in anger as a professional. Remember that. So to get at what you were really asking, or what I think you were really asking there, most of these types, obviously McGroarty and the draft picks and so forth, they can go straight to Wilkes-Barre Scranton. Others will be faced with waivers. And look, I've been pretty consistent with this ever since Kyle Dubas started collecting all these forwards, that you win some, you lose some. And if you lose, let's say, just to bring his name back up again, Cody Glass, you're not, it's not the end of the world. And if he does go somewhere else and succeed, yay him. It's just, there's only so much you can do within, you mentioned a salary cap, but also roster limits, active roster limits. And if somehow you can squeeze them all down to Wilkes-Barre, or most of them down to Wilkes-Barre, you're happy about that too. That can't be a concern. The correct priority was the one that Dubas set, and that was to have a competitive camp. There's no question that's occurred. I appreciate the question. Appreciate everybody listening to Daily Shot of Penguins. Next week, it gets real.